This podcast is part of the No Phony Podcast Network, the home of independent awesomeness.
Welcome back to another episode of On the Road with Jim and Casey. Joining me, as always, James Morganti.
Let's ride, boys.
Joining us today, actor, author, producer, stand-up comic who is probably best known for his roles as Mike Barnes in The Karate Kid 3, AJ Quartermain on General Hospital, and Deacon Sharp on The Bold and the Beautiful, and also The Young and the Restless, Sean Kanan. How you doing,
Hey,
man?
guys. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for joining us.
You guys look good. Everyone's healthy. Everyone's safe.
Yeah, at home workouts, body weight every day. Okay, sunlight, sunshine, vitamin C, zinc,
Good.
vitamin A. I'm just trying to keep my everything working.
Excellent. Like your style. Me too.
How about you, man? How are you holding up?
You know, listen, I was talking to my wife the other day, and I said I feel a little guilty because I have so much compassion and empathy for people that have lost somebody or that have been sick. And for us, I mean, yeah, it's inconvenient, and yeah, there's not really any work or anything, but other than that, we're healthy, we're safe. I'm staying with somebody that I love being with, so it almost, we're doing really well. We're really well, all things considered. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great, man. It's good to make the best out of everything. We're at home right now. You can't go work out at Gold's Gym or Lifetime or something, or you're single. You can't go hitting on chicks at the coffee shop, sitting down next to them,
Right.
and so, or at some sort of bar or anything.
No, you really do. You gotta make the best of it. I mean, it sounds cliche, but part of making the best of it, I think, is exactly what we're doing right now. Staying productive. Giving each day some meaning, because the days, they do start to the days turn into nights, turns into the next day, and it can get overwhelming. And if you're not doing good stuff for yourself, the monotony can set in, and depression sets in.
I could. What's crazy is if I have a system where I'm trying not to. I mean, you could easily fall into bad habits of what do I have to wake up for? I could drink every night. I could do
Yeah, right.
I have nothing. I realize this. I have nothing to wake up for. I could just roll over and die. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to go drink that, or I'm not going to go do this, that, and the other.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's I've been doing a lot of interviews like this, promoting my show Studio City, and it's been really good for me to create some schedule for myself, which is for me, that's one of my secrets. I make sure that I've got at least a couple things that I have to do every day, because you're right. Otherwise, it's why not sleep until 10? Why not stay up till 4 watching TV and drinking wine and overeating and doing all that stuff. I'm not saying I haven't done some of that, but
for sure. Yeah, I hear you.
So, Sean, let's get into like I mentioned at the beginning of the show. Everybody knows you as those characters. You grew up in Pennsylvania, correct?
Yeah, I grew up in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. It's about 45 minutes outside of Pittsburgh, Western PA.
Cool. Yeah, we're on the other side of Pennsylvania in Reading.
Right, you're Reading, right?
Reading.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what made you decide you wanted to get into acting then?
I think growing up in a small town, it's normal to think about the big world beyond that. And at a very young age, I decided, that I wanted to see more of the world. I wanted to find something to do to express myself. And acting seemed like a really good way to do that. I remember really early on in my teenage years, telling friends, I'm gonna pursue acting. I'm gonna go do this, and I did. And I moved out to Los Angeles. I finished my political science degree at UCLA, and I started my acting career in 1987. And, you know, I banged on a lot of doors and got a lot of no's. And then slowly but surely, I got a couple yeses. And then I guess you'd say my big break came when I joined the third installment of the Karate Kid franchise and played Mike Barnes.
Yeah, man. So when growing up, were you in any like plays? Did you act in high school?
Was I a theater geek? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
Were you a nerd, or were you
I
still in the action time?
No, I became a theater geek, as an adult because I love doing theater. But no, I was not popular. I definitely had kind of my ugly duckling phase, and then, about the time I hit 13, 14, I kind of started to grow into myself a little bit more. But I was kind of a loner. It wasn't until I went away to college that I started to kind of come into my own a little bit more, and realized that I really did want to pursue acting. And I was going to school in Boston at Boston University, and knew that I either had to go to New York or had to go to LA. I was going to seriously pursue acting, and I decided it would be easier to be broke where the sun's always out than in New York where it's cold. So moved out to LA, and I've been out here ever since.
Now, were you doing karate? Were you studying karate and in it as a teenager, or did you get into that?
Yeah.
Like, is that a love of yours already?
Yeah, no, I started studying martial arts when I was about 13 years old, and I've studied off and on for years, different styles. So by the time that I, was starting Karate Kid, I had a really significant, martial arts base.
How old were you in Karate Kid?
I'm sorry, what?
How old were you in when Karate Kid 3 was?
Like 21.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
because we did that in '89, so I was like 21 years old. It was really surreal, guys. I mean, a year before being on the studio lot doing scenes with Ralph Macchio and Pat Morita, I was like a guy who paid to go see Karate Kid 2 in the theaters, and it surreal. That's the word I keep coming back to. And to amplify that, I got the part through an open call. They put out an open call for the new bad guy. And there must have been 1,500, 2,000 people that showed up at the studio. And, there I was in line. John Avildsen, who had won the Academy Award for Rocky and had directed the first 2 Karate Kid films, was walking up the line, looking at people, occasionally stopping to do, a quick improv with them. And, I knew I had a couple seconds to get his attention, which I did. And he brought me inside the studio, and that was like a 3-ring circus. There was Entertainment Tonight and Access Hollywood. They were all covering it because, this was, I think they thought this was going to be kind of a publicity stunt. Hang on a second. I'm going to go close this door for 1 second. Hey, guys, knock it off. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
So, I don't think they ever expected to find the guy to play Mike Barnes from the open call. Ralph Macchio was there. I wound up doing a scene with him. And yeah, I thought it went really well. They wound up hiring somebody else. So another guy originally was hired to play Mike Barnes. And after about 4 or 5 days, they realized it wasn't working out with him, and they let him go, and they brought me in.
What exactly is an open call? What does that mean?
So an open call, or it's called a cattle call sometimes. It's basically normally when you're trying to find an actor for a role, there's something called a breakdown service. So a description of the role from the show will be put out. It's circulated by the casting director to the agents. The agents then make submissions for the actors they represent to the casting director. Casting director decides who they want to see, and there's an audition process. An open call is generally just anybody who wants to come can show up, and they can try their best to get the part. And the majority of the time, they are not generally Screen Actors Guild actors. A lot of times they're not actors at all. I mean, it really is. It's a pretty chaotic scene, and that's one of the reasons why they never anticipated, I don't think, finding the actor for that role from the open call. They figured it was going to generate a lot of publicity for the film, and lo and behold, I got the part from that role.
I heard on an interview that in that part they needed somebody that had the just that could harness the lion man strength and power of tenacity and just primal rage to scare Machio, to scare
Yeah.
Ralph Macchio's character, and then you like did that so well. I mean, you're coming in and he had to say like, okay, all right, and it was like, shoot, it was that's why they picked you or something. I heard it on one interview you were in.
Well, I mean, look, it certainly helped. I mean, I really hadn't studied acting a whole lot at that point. I was studying, and I did work extensively with an acting coach once I got the part. But I mean, really more than anything, what I had was just kind of like, I had some raw charisma and a lot of intensity, which is kind of what the part called for. I didn't
They don't have that anymore. They don't have. I mean, well, they do, but like I feel like the action hero, and like it's hard to come by anymore these days.
Well, listen, I was very fortunate. I was in the right place at the right time. I had the martial arts background, and I had done some acting. I had done some guest star work on network television, and I had done a small movie before that. So I wasn't completely, a deer in the headlights, but it definitely was, I don't want to say it was overwhelming, but it was a lot.
Now, was that, did you have an injury in that?
Yeah, I did.
For that, during the filming of that?
Yeah. So the story with that is that, I started having some significant pain in my left thigh, and I attributed it to all the martial arts, the choreography, the practicing. And so I started taking a lot of aspirin. Well, it turned out that I had done a stunt that had nothing to do with karate. I was sort of standing in a stationary position, and I had to jump and fall on my side, and they were going to match that shot with the shot of me coming through the Cobra Kai dojo where Mr. Miyagi throws Mike Barnes through. Anyway, what had happened was I had perforated my omentum, which is a sheath of tissue that wraps around your intestine, and I was bleeding internally, and the blood was dripping on my femoral artery. The drip, drip, drip is what was causing the pain in my leg. The aspirin exacerbated the bleeding. I was in Las Vegas Christmas Day, 1989. I think it was 89 or 90. I was getting confused. And I was with a friend, and I'll never forget, I had three $100 bills in my hand, and we were gambling, and I went, I think I'm going to pass out. And I just, boom, hit the ground. The EMTs came, and they quickly deduced that my blood pressure was almost non-existent because I had bled internally for, probably 4 days. And they took me to the hospital, and they said, listen, you're young and you're strong, and we're going to try and save your life. And I was like, try to save my life. I'm 21 years old. I'm in great shape. I'm doing a martial arts film. And they said, well, we have to operate on you. And I said, okay, what, like Monday? And they said, no, in 15 minutes. And it was the scariest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. I mean, it was, you're 21, you think you're immortal. And to be told that you may not make it was terrifying. And my friend called my parents. They could only get one ticket because it was like midnight. My dad flew out, and as the emergency room surgeon was about to put me under, I said, listen, please don't cut my abdominal muscles if you can avoid it, if you can resect them, because I come from a family of doctors. I knew that if they cut my abdominal muscles, I was going to be out of the movie because it takes so long to heal them. But if they could pull them aside, do the surgery, then I'd have a chance. So long story longer, I woke up in the recovery room. My dad was there. He was gray. I had about a 15-inch scar down my abdomen with staples, and I got a call from the studio, John Avildsen. And, I didn't tell this story for a long time this way, but, John's passed away, and I feel, it was not, hey, kid, how you doing? It was like, you got to get back to work or we're going to recast you. And that was a hard welcome to Hollywood lesson, but one that I was glad that I got. And the first day after my surgery, I was able to put my feet on the ground, and I was able to go to the bathroom and walk around my room a little bit. And the next day I was able to walk around the entire hospital hallways floor, the entire floor. And the day after that, I could walk around 3 times. And the day after that, I could walk around 10 times and have them discharge me against medical advice. So they said, okay, you can stay in the movie, because they had shot just enough of me, like 2 weeks worth. before we broke for the holidays, that it made sense for them to at least see if we could work it out, because it would have been terribly expensive. So they had a stuntman doing all my martial arts, and it was killing me because, I mean, you know, I had trained for a long time, and, you know, it should have been me. And so they put me with a guy from the LA Rams the first time the Rams were in LA, and I started training with a lineman named Kyle Borland. And, you know, again, the first day I could do 10 sit-ups, and the next day 50. And then, you know, ultimately I wound up doing every one of my own stunts in the film, all my martial arts. That was me. The only stunt that I didn't do in the film was a stunt. I don't know if you remember, but Mike Barnes and his buddies were in that convertible Mustang after I kicked the girl and all that stuff. And they do a donut and then race across the train tracks just as a train comes by. And I was like, there is no effing way that I'm doing that stunt. After almost dying, I'm not getting taken out by a speeding train.
How the hell did they do that with the train?
I don't know. I think it was a stuntman. I was off the set at the time. I was like, you guys could do it. It was a stuntman. I mean, they timed it. I don't know.
Damn.
I don't know. They did it.
That's a great story of just I mean, overcoming. How many times in life are you at odds with literally there's a mountain in your way of like an injury, and they're like, can you do a flying hurricane kick in combination with like Chun-Li's or something, like, you know what I mean? Like, in life, like that happens. And I just like, I heard that parts of the story once, and I was like, man, that's, and like, you just like overcame that to have such a known character. And then,
you know, and it's traumatic and scary and painful and all the stuff that it was. Honestly, I don't think I would trade it for anything, because at a really early age, at least in that moment, you know, it showed me a glimpse of my character, you know, a glimpse that I hadn't seen before. And it was like, you know what, when the chips are down, at least in that instance, I was able to fight my way back. And then it was like, I really deserved the part. You know what I mean? Like, it was mine and I had fought for it. And, you know, for that reason, that film is really special to me. It's like, you know, when you're an actor, I think you find something, sometimes big like that, other times little, that's something you take away from every big work experience. And that to me was more important than actually seeing myself on the big screen and playing the role. It was kind of what it revealed to me about myself.
Also, such a great song, Gloria Love, one of my favorites. Oh, wait, no, that was Karate Kid
Chicago,
2.
Right?
That was the second one. But
is that
still, great
Chicago,
song,
right?
guys.
Yeah.
Sean, you said that you did all your own stunts and all your own fighting and everything in that movie.
Yeah.
And with Ralph Macchio having a karate background, especially after the previous two movies, how did you go about doing that? Was it like I right out of high school, I was a professional wrestler. So
wow.
Yeah, everything was, you know, we knew the outcome, but we kind of worked out our own.
Well, I kind of knew the outcome too, that I was going to lose.
right. But were those like, were they choreographed, or like how did you go about doing that? Like
they were meticulously choreographed by Pat Johnson. Pat Johnson played the referee in the Karate Kid films, but he was also a world-class martial artist. He was on Chuck Norris's demo team. I believe he's a Tang Soo Do, like 8th or 9th degree black belt, and he was also in Enter the Dragon. So Mr. Johnson, Sensei Johnson, trained us meticulously. And, you know, the most important thing, even though I was the guy that had a significant injury, it was, you know, don't hurt Ralph. He's the star of the movie. You know, you can't hurt the star of the movie. And so it was really important to me to be, you know, as precise as I could be to make sure that, you know, I didn't get hurt and to make sure that Ralph didn't get hurt. And I, you know, if nothing else, we accomplished that.
Yeah, well,
I always, what's like the, I've always, when I watched, I'm a huge 80s Van Damme, Bloodsport.
Yeah,
I mean,
still,
all like
I love
my favorite stuff. And what's the, like, I always feel that when I watch TVs, and obviously I did a little karate, but nothing worth talking about, you know, to be effective in fighting is one thing, but to look good on camera, it's like, oh, what do you think you know what I mean? Like, it's totally different. And like, was that hard for you coming from like, oh, well, I mean, easily I would just, and like, it might not look good. It'll look like this instead of, oh yeah, well, hang on a second. And then like legs are flying all
Well,
over
I
the
mean,
place.
you know, here's the thing. I had very good basics. You know, my technique for basic stuff was really good. I mean, I'm not the guy that's going to do, like you said, a jump, flying, hurricane kick, stuff like that. But, you know, what they gave me to do, I could do. But these guys had done the first 2 Karate Kid films. They knew exactly, you know, how to make it look good, how to shoot it. I was in really good hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they made me look the best that I could look. And, we rehearsed. I mean, you know, it was a hard movie to make because, first of all, you know, I was not at full strength, obviously. I'd lost a lot of weight from the surgery and everything. And I wasn't as strong as I was when I started the film. I had to work back up to it. And, you know, we had extensive long filming hours, and when we weren't filming, we were rehearsing the fight choreography. So by the time we got to the fight scenes, I think everybody felt really comfortable, but there was no improv with the fighting, because I mean, if you improv and somebody goes left when they're supposed to go right, someone can get hurt really badly.
Yeah. You had your sensei was actually taught by Pat Morita's stunt double, correct? Is that right?
No, I was. No, I
you
was. Sensei Demura, Fumio Demura, who was Pat Morita's stunt double, is the head of the Japan Karate Federation, which my school that I was in became a part of the Japan Karate Federation. So Sensei Demura is somebody that has been very important in my life. He was instrumental, I think, in telling the powers that be that I was a good guy, that I could do the martial arts. You know, I don't know that I necessarily would have gotten the part without him. I had a really big honor about a year ago. I was inducted into the Masters Hall of Fame, which is a organization that has, you know, martial artists of note. And Sensei Demura was in that, and I got to be inducted in that last year and have my sensei watch that. So, you know, it was a big honor, but he was the head of my school.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm looking at all your the TV shows you were in, man. You're in a ton of stuff. I'm saying like Walker, Texas Ranger, Chuck Norris.
That was, I mean, that was a
awesome.
long time ago, but that was great, man. I'll tell you a funny story about that. So first of all, I did that show with Frank Stallone, which was really cool.
Oh no!
Frank Stallone, you know, Ed Bailey from Tombstone, right? But not to mention, you know, brother of Rocky. But when I was a kid, my dad went to something, I don't know what it was, and he got me an autographed picture of Chuck Norris. And it said, "Hey, Sean, keep on kicking." And years later, I'm on set doing a fight scene with Chuck Norris. And I mean, it was like, it was my life, you know. Chuck was such an amazingly nice guy, so kind and patient. And, you know, as a guy that grew up on Chuck Norris films, to be in a fight scene with Chuck was just insane.
I mean, Delta Force. Well, so that was filmed. I was living in Austin for about 2 years.
It was in Dallas, actually.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I was all over Texas. I played all over and traveled a ton. I love Texas, man. And like when I was like, oh wait, because I used to watch Walker, Texas Ranger with my parents, and I was like, this is America. And you know, Texas is just like,
I love Texas.
The women there are like these. Oh. They're just so one. I mean, I've been alone for so long.
They grow pretty down there, don't they?
Oh yeah, it's like it's totally different than on the East Coast over here. And oh boy, I miss it so much. Go ahead, Case. You're probably gonna have something important to say.
Just real quick to go back to Karate Kid, with the resurgence of Cobra Kai. Mm-hmm. And the YouTube series, has there been any talks of bringing Mike Barnes' character back?
Well, you know, the fans have really verbalized that they'd like to see Mike Barnes come back. I mean, I'd love to do it. I'd love to dust off the Cobra Kai gi. You know, I've had communication with the producers, and you know, these guys are fans of the show. I mean of the you know, the series, the Karate Kid trilogy. And I think they want to bring back everybody that they can, but have them fit into the Cobra Kai world organically. So, I'd love to do it. If they call upon me, I am there in a minute. Marty Cove's a buddy of mine. Billy Zabka's a buddy of mine. It'd be great to see Ralph. So I'm ready, Coach. Put me in.
Yeah, I was actually I was doing a little deep diving today into conspiracy theories with Cobra Kai, and some people are thinking that they've already wrote you into the show as Johnny's
boss.
Yeah.
That'd be funny. Yeah, I mean, I always wonder what became of Mike Barnes. I mean, did he just become a bigger asshole? Did he wind up going to jail? Or I wondered, did he maybe go into the military and he got straightened out and maybe became a good guy? I also like my own personal theory that he went to live in a commune and became like Mr. Peace, Love, and Understanding, wears beads, and just became a zened out, chilled out cat.
Oh, it's like I always thought. Have you seen that's the whole thing on YouTube about how Ralph Macchio's character was the bad character in the first Karate Kid, and then it was flipped, and then now in the Cobra Kai he's like this slick car salesman, and so that would be a good thing. That would be a good assumption.
So if you were to reprise your role as Mike Barnes and they wanted you to come back as instead of the peace-loving hippie that you think that he grew into, if he would still come back,
that's just one possibility.
Right. If he would come back as like a Martin Martin Cove, right? If he would come back as like a bully still, how would you feel about that, being that you're an ambassador for the anti-bullying campaign?
The anti-bullying campaign.
To bullying.
I mean, my hope is that if I was fortunate enough to come back, that they would give me something significant to do with the character being, multidimensional, that it's not just sort of a stunt casting because they know that people would tune in to see Mike Barnes, but that actually, we learn what happened to this guy and we see some kind of evolution in who he is now. These guys are real talented writers. They've got great comedic sensibilities. They did Harold and Kumar, and I think they'd give me something interesting to do. But listen, if Mike's still a bad guy, then I've been known to play a bad guy or two.
Yeah, it's a great show, man. I really hope that you get cast.
I really like it. Yeah, me too.
And a couple of stuff about your anti-bullying campaign, which is great. Like in a couple of our shows, I've talked about I was bullied as a kid. I'm sorry. I had the love of Jesus, and I loved comic books and playing guitar and everything. And I was I always had glasses since I was basically like 3 months. I've been blind. But when I was bullied and you've probably researched this much more than I have. You probably know a lot more than I do the philosophy of it. But when I got older, because I'm about 6'2" now. All the bullies were they came up to me, and I was never mad at them as a kid. Because I think my mom taught me to have a heart of see both sides of everything, or maybe it's my Gemini, whatever. And I always thought they were funny in front of people, but then they just bullied me because they could. But as I got older, they all came up to me and were like, Jim, I'm so sorry. And they're smaller than me, obviously. I'm towering over them with women around me because they're all married and divorced and everything. But not like that. But something was happening in their life that was causing them to put this on me. And I'm like, hey man, you're funny. I already like you. Why are you mad at me?
Right. Well, I mean, listen, that's very often the case in bullying. A lot of times the kids that are being bullied are experiencing something really traumatic at home, either physical abuse or incredible low self-esteem, and they're manifesting it in a really negative way. The hope is that what happened to you is what happens. You evolve as a human being, and you realize the error of your ways. And if you ever have the opportunity to apologize to somebody that maybe you bullied, that's fantastic, or that they bullied you, that they've apologized. That's terrific. But it's a really serious thing. I mean, and now, because we have the internet, when I was a kid, because I was bullied as a kid severely, was one of the things that got me to martial arts. you get bullied during school hours and you get bullied running home from school. But, now kids are getting bullied 24 hours a day with a single keystroke on the internet. And, teen suicide is the fourth most common reason that kids are dying. And a lot of the reason that teen suicide happens is because, they're being bullied and just, they don't see any way out for themselves. And it's really tragic. A year or so ago, we saw a couple kids that were in elementary school out here in California that took their own lives. And it's really tragic, and I want to do my part. Yeah.
What's your like, what do you offer? Like, I mean, not to say, because I've always had this idea to tell schools, how they have the safe room? Oh, well, here's a safe room where we hold you and we coddle you. I was like, well, we have a danger room too, like in X-Men. The X-Men had a danger room where you just get this guy and he's like, all right, and he's like, well, Steve, what do you say? He called you fat? Well, did you call him stupid because he's failing and he's 3 years older than you?
Yeah.
Or, like, do you ever think of, like, maybe
I don't know that encouraging gladiatorial combat in elementary school is necessarily a good solution. Look, what we do with Buddha bullying is we go into the school to an assembly, we get kids up on the stage talking about it. And what we found out is that, bullying is really a triangle. It's the kids that are being bullied, the kids that are doing the bullying, and the kids that are observing the bullying. And it's traumatic for all of them ultimately. And we tell everyone to close their eyes and say, okay, anybody who's been bullied, raise your hand. You'd be amazed how many kids raise their hand. And we say, anyone who's bullied somebody, raise your hand. And a lot of kids raise their hand. And we get the kids to come up on stage and we facilitate a very honest dialogue. And it's really cathartic for a lot of them. And it's amazing to watch these kids, maybe some really little, slight, small kid with bad skin who's crying because he's been bullied. And, you don't know how the other kids are going to react. And then at the end of the assembly, you watch these kids put their arm around them and hug them. And it's reaffirming. You know what I mean? It's like maybe there is hope for us after all. One of the solutions is that I think parents really have got to be observant. If a kid comes to you, that may be the one time that he comes to you and tries to say, hey, look, I'm in crisis. I'm in trouble. Please, I need help. And if you're not responsive to it, that might be the one and only time he chooses to do that before, hurting himself or herself. So I also think that, kids have to understand that, if you're being bullied, it doesn't make you a rat or a snitch to go and tell somebody so that it can stop. Unfortunately, this stuff can get out of control very quickly.
I would look at it as like, not as a snitch, but I would say, resolving, and for everyone. You know what I mean? Like, because I mean, for sure, like the parents is where that's the most important part. Because as soon as, you should be close with your child and know, look in their heart and discern, knowing when something's wrong. I mean, my mom was way overprotective for me. I've never gotten hurt or anything, but whenever she was always saying, Jim, is your heart okay? And like, she was always asking like how, and I'm like, yeah,
checking
Mom,
in with you.
Right. Yeah. And that's an important thing too. And like, for sure, I can see how some people are like, oh, you're a snitch or you can't handle your own problems. Well, I think none of us can handle our own problems. But if you go to somebody, hey, let me ask an elder, hey, what would you do if this guy's, bring it together, and then everyone's kind of helped because maybe that bully is suffering something crazy trauma at home that he's being molested or just beaten, and drunken fathers throwing him across the room. You never know, and then that could help him in turn too.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this starts with civility. It's like we have got to start treating each other with more mutual respect and civility as not only adults, but parents have got to, instill that into children so they go out and take it into the world. I'm also a big proponent of this crap where everybody gets a trophy and everybody's a winner. What it does is it prepares kids to go out there and think that each one of them is a special little snowflake, and that if they're not treated like that, then suddenly they get to jump into the victim circle, because, being a victim offers you a lot of things. It lets you join a group. It gets you sympathy. I mean, and I'm not saying that there aren't people that are genuinely victims of things, but a lot of times people are too quick to identify as a victim because it allows them to be a part of something. I mean, I'm sure you're going to get, or I'll get blowback on that, and maybe I'm not articulating it right. But if we teach our kids to have good self-esteem, be confident, and treat other people the way they want to be treated with respect, then I think that they're going to encounter less problems when they're out in the real world. For me, my solution was studying martial arts. That really helped me achieve self-confidence and deal with my bullying issues and everything like that. It may not be that. My theory is that everybody has got a masterpiece within them, and that masterpiece is their authentic self. And it may be acting, or it may be sports, or it may be you're an incredible painter or something like that. But it's getting in touch with what that special thing is. My wife is making funny faces. Knock it off. It's getting in touch with what that really special thing you have is, and that gives you confidence. And when you exude confidence, it, I think, makes you less of a target for bullying, but also helps you in life to learn strategies how to deal with stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look at this in so many ways. Healthy competition is one of the best ways to grow in anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk the Bible a lot, but Jesus said, I mean, like, you can grow from others, right? And what the story of how you got into Karate Kid 3, like, I like that a lot, because I'm all about exactly pursuing. I can only be what I am. My mom taught me the Bible, conspiracy theories. I love talking about guitar, the love of God, and let people be. You can't change their mind. Just let them be whatever they want to be. You do you,
Right.
And like do what you love. And you pursued fighting, martial arts, and you got that role in something that you love. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you, regardless of the bullying and stuff, you liked to do martial arts.
Yeah.
And that kind of led you in a path. And the whole trophy thing for the people that are, what about my kid, this, that, and the other. I know that I get their feeling of they want to be a part of something. But again, you also need the competition to, okay, well, what do you love? Do you even love this? Find that in a person to pursue the treasures of their heart. So they do, you know what? Sometimes I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to be handicapped. You still got to do it when the other person might be better than you. You still have to.
I think failing is an important part of succeeding. And,
for sure.
When kids are not allowed to fail and taught that failure is a part of succeeding, and use, feelings of anguish and disappointment that failing usually brings as a catalyst to push them to get back up and do better, they never learn that, and they become entitled. It's like, well, I didn't do my best, but I still deserve a trophy, and how come I'm not getting my trophy? And you know what? Then they get out in the real world, and life is not a perfect meritocracy, but generally speaking, those who do things the best are the ones that are rewarded. And as long as you're giving your best and trying, that's what matters. But when you're being rewarded and told that it's okay, that everybody's the same, everybody's not the same. I'm a firm believer that, we live in a country where everybody should have the same opportunities. It doesn't mean that everybody should have the same life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I came up with, this came to me the one day. I love working out. I've been in gyms my whole life, and I always philosophize gym and how it's like life. And I feel that a way to think about it is anyone can go to the gym. We're all welcome. You know what I mean? You pay, some gyms are whatever you pay to go to a gym. You can go to a gym, you can work deals with them, whatever. Now, are some people have good genetics and they just can do stuff? Yeah. But are you going to work harder than them? Some people are skinny. Some people are fat. Who's going to work the hardest at getting what they need to do? We all are on that same level. And yes, some people are born into it. Maybe they have more money or something, or they have more of what seems a higher opportunity. But are they putting in the hours and the experience? Do you know what I mean? And are they putting in the work? And to me, it's that, like, you can kind of like philosophize it that way, of saying we're all have the equal opportunity to, I don't know what you want to do. You want to bench press 400 pounds. You're the work and the effort, and the people, in my opinion, that don't have it and build to that.
Right.
That's just America. You know what I mean? Like, that's just like climbing the mountain by the grip of it instead of getting the helicopter to drop you off at the top. You know what I mean?
I think ultimately, we're really all in competition against ourselves. I mean, we know when we're doing our best. We know when we're not. And, it doesn't matter if you get a trophy when you didn't do your best. It's a hollow victory. It doesn't resonate.
Yeah, and you know what? And it shows in everyone, because, in people, that when you have that mentality that you have to keep going forward, you're always going to do something. Whether again, how you said, they're not taught the failure part. Like, that. Right. You can't have just this. You're not always just constantly in pleasure. You can't have pleasure without pain. There's no way. And it's almost like, no. Don't worry about the pain. No. There is no pain. Only this. Only get the. That's not reality, and that's not the way of a master.
I agree. I'm a big proponent of the phrase "we shall see." And you guys know the story about the Chinese farmer? I'll tell you the story about the Chinese farmer.
I might.
I don't.
Way back many years ago, in one of the southern provinces of China, was this farmer, and he lived with his one son, and he had one horse. And one night, his horse runs out of the corral, and his neighbor says, "What bad luck." And the farmer says, "We shall see." And the next morning, the horse comes back at the head of 6 wild Mustangs. They go right into the corral, and the neighbor says, "What amazing luck." And he says, "We shall see." So the next day, the son goes out, and he was going to break one of the Mustangs because they're wild, and he's thrown and broke his leg, which was a horrible injury at that time. And his next door neighbor said, "What bad luck." And he said, "We shall see." And the very next day, the local warlord came to conscript all the young men for the war, but the son couldn't go and fight because he had a broken leg. And the neighbor said, "What bad luck." And on it goes and on it goes. And my point is that from the failures that we have, we shall see, because we never know where they're going to take us. And likewise with our victories. And, sometimes what seems like it is one of the most devastating failures turns out to be, an exalted victory. When I was injured and thought that I was going to lose the movie at my young age, I was crushed. I didn't quite yet get the "we shall see" thing. And, what it led me to was the opportunity to rehabilitate myself and kind of see what my internal fortitude was, and ultimately finish the film "We Shall See." And on it goes and on it goes.
Wow, dude. That, Sean, is such a great, I got the chills when you said it.
Oh, thank you.
Because
it's not my story.
Right. Well, no, but like, hey, I might use that again in the future on the future podcasts. That's a great way to look at it. I mean, it's just an infinite way of hope, and you might think it's a loss, but in actuality, it's the greatest blessing of all time. And we've all had tragedies, and we've all been through something so horrible.
I'm divorced, and it was crushing when I was divorced. And had I not gotten divorced, it wouldn't have caused me to do work on myself and ultimately be ready to meet the woman of my dreams, my wife now, Michelle. We're about to celebrate our 8th anniversary. And what seemed like it was the most crushing and devastating thing that could have happened to me ultimately freed me for what has been the most amazing experience of my life. So
I think I said those exact words. I had my first love die, basically, long story short. And like throughout everything in my life, I was like, well, I've almost been like this my life has been not that I'm saying that's good,
Right.
but you can see the hurt, the failure, and the pain and everything, and then the blessings and the pleasures of everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So before we wrap things up, let's get into Studio City.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you give us some info on? I haven't seen. I don't watch any TV. I'm YouTube and Google educated in some ancient weird text about the Nephilim and the fallen angels. But let's talk about Studio City and
so Studio City. Studio City has been a project that I've been trying to get made for 15 years. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a short form digital series. The episodes are between 10 and 15 minutes. There's 6 of them in the first season. The story is about my character, Sam Stevens, who's an aging soap star on the #2 soap opera in the country, Hearts on Fire. He's a guy that always thought his career should have been, it should have had some more gravitas. He should have had a bigger career in Hollywood. He should have been an action star. And in the pilot episode, his wanting more comes in the form of somebody that he never knew existed. And it turns his entire life upside down. I won't ruin the surprise. It's not a show for soap opera fans. It's about a guy who works on a soap opera. Soap opera fans are going to love it because there are several actors that are very well known from soap operas. But it's about a guy who's got all the problems that most normal people have. He just happens to have a really atypical kind of interesting job. And, my wife is one of the writers and producers. I created the show. I'm executive producer, writer. I star in it. We've been nominated for almost 20 awards so far, 12 independent series awards. We're pre-nominated right now for 12 daytime Emmys. The voting actually stops this Sunday. And it's been getting phenomenal reviews. And I'm so proud of the cast we put together. We deal with a lot of really pertinent social issues, ageism. We have an incredible LGBTQ storyline with a trans actor. We deal with suicide. We deal with, Me Too. And it's all packed into these really digestible short episodes. It looks beautiful. Tim Woodward Jr., who directed all of the episodes, is a film director. His director of photography, a cinematographer, Pablo Diaz, is a film DP. So it's got a really beautiful, rich cinematic look, as opposed to, sometimes you see digital series that look a little bit like they were shot in somebody's basement. And, I encourage you to watch it. It's on Amazon Prime. You can binge the whole thing in like 90 minutes. I'm really proud of it. It's some of the work that I've done in my career that I'm most proud of. Yeah, please give it a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely check it out tonight. And
Thank you.
Being that you're the creator of the show, we didn't even get into your soap opera career. You know the ins and outs of the soap opera business.
Yeah. I've been working. I started soaps in 1992, and here's the thing. A lot of times when you see soap operas portrayed in film and in other mediums, they're always like this hyperbolic, over the top. You guys there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
It's always like this hyperbolic, over the top acting. It's almost as if the actors playing the soap opera actors have to show that they're good actors and they get it. And the way they demonstrate it is by kind of acting over the top. And I wanted the soap opera within the show to be played pretty straight. It's not played 100% straight, but it's like 90% straight, and so it's not like Soap Dish, and it's not like some of these other films and TV shows. And like I said, ultimately it's about this guy. It's my character who, I'm no longer the young buck on the show. I'm an older leading man. My contract is up. I'm getting the screws put to me by the producers to re-sign. And, to exacerbate that, they bring on a young, kind of better looking version of me as the new guy on the show. And, my character's whole sense of terra firma is completely turned upside down. And as I said, it's made even, I don't want to say worse, but magnified by somebody who comes into his life that he absolutely never even knew existed. And, watching this guy that in the beginning is kind of, he's a little bit shallow. He's kind of lived in the B- bubble of soap opera fame all of his life. That's how he grew up. And he's always, kind of had these golden handcuffs in the sense that, he makes good money, even though he can't seem to pay his bills ever. And, he kind of wants to do other things, but is afraid to leave the show. And he gets a lot of fastballs thrown at him really quickly. And I think it makes for some very compelling story.
Awesome. And
Sounds
you
like
said that voting ends for the awards this Sunday.
Yes, it ends this Sunday. When's this airing, by the way?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Can people vote on it, or like?
No, you have to be. No, you have to be in the. I believe you have to be in the. Well, you don't have to be in the Television Academy, but the majority of the judges, I believe, are in the Television Academy. It gets a little complicated, but you know what? The sooner we can get this out, the better. I'm also obviously trying to, generate viewership for Studio City. Just get the show introduced to people. It's very much our goal that when the coronavirus is over, that we are going to do a season 2. It's going to be bigger and better than the first one. I don't know if we're going to wind up staying on the same platform, Amazon Prime, go to a different platform. I would like to see us move to a longer format where it's actually a full 30-minute show, which would be, if it's with commercials, would wind up being 22 minutes. I have an idea of where I see the character going towards the end of his journey, and there's a lot of great story to get him there. So I just want as many people as possible to give it a shot. And anyone who watches it, please follow me on Twitter or Instagram. It's at Sean Kanan, and I'd love to hear ideas and questions and stuff that that new fans and viewers have to say about the show.
Awesome.
Well, we're always looking forward to some comments from everybody, and we have a pretty diverse audience. I always like to say hot girls and just like bros that want to work out too.
That's great. Love those guys. Love both those groups.
Right. But before we wrap up, I just wanted to, I like to just like have, our guests leave our audience with something that they can put in their pocket. I say this every day.
Okay.
My dad, there's an old saying from Italy. My dad would say this, something to put in your pocket to remember that you can pull out and you have something that you can hold on to. Like when you were talking about the soap operas, I was just going to ask you, like, what's a tip to actors right now trying to get into it? What's like the best type of film to get into? And I was going to say is soap opera, because the way they act it's so, and I was never a fan. My mom might have watched some of it. It's very like, but Sheila, and it's like,
well, listen, some of the best actors I've ever worked with have been on daytime. But I mean, if you're asking me about, if you're asking me for a tip for somebody who wants to get into acting, I would say be very certain that it's what you want to do, because it's a difficult way to make a living. There's a lot of easier ways to make money than acting. But if it's what you absolutely have to do, you feel it's inside of you, then treat it seriously. And by that, I mean study. Study everything that you can. Study acting, learn a foreign language. Make yourself as worldly as possible through travel, because the more experiences you have, the greater depth you're going to have as an actor. I think you have to be realistic, and if you want to pursue it professionally, you need to be where the work is, which is, New York, Los Angeles, Atlanta, and what else? The other thing too is that this is in a lot of ways one of the best times to be an actor, because there's so many different platforms out there. There's so many different channels and cable networks, etc. And also with cell phones, you can literally film something, do it, find a scene you like, do a monologue and throw it up on YouTube. And now you've got something that's a visual component to show somebody who might be able to take you to that next level. You're looking for an agent. They're going to say, I want to see you. I want to see you on tape. I don't use tape anymore, but that's what they say on film. And right. you want to have something that they can actually watch. And that wasn't the case, years ago. And now, aspiring actors have those outlets and opportunities. Take advantage of them.
make the best of this time, because it's like just like what we said, you know what I mean? Like that's literally, we started this podcast the second the shutdown happened, and I'm like, guys, I mean,
So smart.
I mean, I know a lot of people are, and I had to. I felt I felt I heard a call from God, and it just happened. So really appreciate it, you coming on. Go ahead,
You
Case.
guys, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me. It was great. It was just like, shooting the breeze with a couple of friends. You guys are really easy to talk to. Let me know when this is going to go up, and I'll make sure we get it out there. And let's do this again sometime. I really appreciate it. I wish you guys all the best.
Thank you.
Okay?
Man. Yeah,
All right, guys.
Once again, just tell everyone where they can follow you at.
You can follow me at Sean Kanan on Twitter and on Instagram. And we have a Twitter for Studio City. It's at Studio City Show, I think, on Twitter. Please check it out on Amazon Prime and let me know what you think. All right?
All right. Thanks, man.
All right, guys. You take care.
You too,
Bye-bye.
man.
All right, Sean, you too.
Bye-bye.